Good morning, everybody. It is Carol and Ellie for Just in Time Genie. And in this episode, we are going to talk about deep diving into your purpose and releasing old paradigms. So, this is actually really timely because I just released some new coaching programs, one of which is my 3-month program called My Experience Revealed. And I called it that because it is kind of stripping away layers to see who am I really? What do I really want? So I love this topic. One of the things we want to talk about is setting goals, and I'm going to let Ellie talk about that. But before I do that, when we're talking about purpose, so many people have an issue figuring out what that is. Why is it so hard to figure out our purpose? Most people don't get a neon sign. So a few things you can do to make some headway is, one, look at your beliefs about relationships, money, love, work, etc. And are they really your beliefs, or were they passed down from generation to generation? We have to gradually strip away that which doesn't serve us. So I'll get to some other things after Ellie talks about goals. But I think everybody can relate to that. Purpose it's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Unless you're one of those lucky people who are born saying, yep, I've always wanted to be a doctor, I've always wanted to be a writer.
Yeah. And Carol, just to contextualize, what's important about looking into our beliefs about life related to purpose?
So, that's a great question. So I think what happens a lot of times is, say, for example, you come from a family that says, this is what you do. You go to school, you get a job, and make sure it's something, business, accounting, something where you're going to be set. So for anyone who grew up in a family like that, which so many of us did, and you actually were thinking, well, no, I wanted to be a writer, or maybe I wanted to be a teacher, whatever it is, it kind of squashes what you want and you kind of push that down. So as the years go by and you're going on this track that really was not yours, it starts causing this unhappiness and resentment. And I know for myself, and I often use myself as an example, I know I did this as well. It was climbing the corporate ladder. And when I kind of got to maybe not the pinnacle, but close to where the pinnacle of my career, I was not happy at all. It wasn't that I wasn't grateful for the opportunities, but nothing about what I was doing resonated in my soul because I had never taken the time to really think about what is important to me, what lights me up. And that's not an airy, fairy, fluffy thing. This is your life. So it's very important to get clear on that.
Right. I think that's the key. Most of us don't even think about purpose. We think about tasks and achievements and success and what that looks like in society and what that looks like based on the people who love us and around us. And so that becomes our purpose. It becomes our purpose to fulfill that image that we want of ourselves that fits with what we've learned. But there's always a moment in which we realize that the meaning isn't there.
Exactly.
I think we're being purposeful, but in the end we get to a point where we're thinking, actually, no, this isn't giving me the meaning that I wanted in my life, so this isn't my life purpose.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And so setting goals. So one of the things we are taught from a very young age is setting goals, and that if we are on purpose, we have goals, right? And we're busy, which is important with those goals. And we are often, if you go into business schools or even in schools, they teach you SMART goals. So specific, measurable, achievable, result. What was the R for? I don't remember. And the T is timely.
Realistic, I think.
Sorry?
Realistic.
Realistic. Okay. So yeah, that's actually the key one. So why don't SMART goals work? And this ties into what Carol was saying earlier about check into your beliefs. Realistic is usually driven by those beliefs. What is realistic? So very often with my coachees, when I'm working on their vision, or with a team on their vision, there's this constant voice of, ideally this is what I would like, but that's not feasible because A, B, C, and D. And we stop ourselves from having a purpose that suits us, because we go into everything that realistically, so of course we have bills, that's realistic, and of course we need to have a living, but this kind of there's other stuff that gets in the way. That's our belief mechanism of, I am not good enough for that, so that's not realistic, or I'm not smart enough, or I don't have the tools for that, so that's not going to happen. Okay, so here's the deal. If we go more into understanding the difference between a means and a goal. So the means is the way in which we get to that goal, but the goal has to be a bigger vision, one that encompasses not just us, but more than us, like a legacy, and yes, it sounds big, but that's the only way of coming down and saying, then there are different routes to get to it. If our goal becomes to go to that university to become a lawyer so that you can go to that particular law firm, what happens when you don't get into that school? All your dreams get broken. Whereas if you're into understanding the bigger dream, maybe making a difference to children's rights or women's rights, then you can do it in different ways, from different schools and different courses and different partner places or different books or whatever else. So that's the importance of the realistic. Especially what's realistic to me now is defined by my limitations. And timely all has to do with, we tend to be unrealistic of what we can achieve in a year, but really be under serving ourselves in what we can achieve in 3 to 5 years. So learning how to create the bigger vision and then work towards it is important in terms of goals. And that's where somebody can help you to get past the limiting beliefs when setting those goals and understanding, well, is that a means goal or is that a real end goal? And that's what
Absolutely.
Carol does. You do that with your program, and I help out my coachees through my stuff too.
Yeah, and I think you touched on so many good points. It is so helpful to have someone else look at things objectively as you're talking about what's happening, because we all have blind spots.
Right.
And I know for myself, I've had coaches, and I've said this before, I truly believe in coaching. I'll probably always have some type of coach in some capacity, because as I grow, there are still some blind spots. And then the other thing you touched on is, sometimes when we're setting those goals, we don't think that we're smart enough, that we're good enough. Am I worthy? Who do I think I am? And a lot of this comes from the other thing I wanted to talk about, which is the emotional blocks and clearing those. So indulge me for a second as I talk about this, because I'm actually pretty passionate about this part of the whole journey to meeting the goal that you want to reach. So clearing away emotional blocks. Throughout our lives, we go through events that are hard, sad, or traumatic. And very often we don't process all of the emotions at those times. So what happens? An energetic block is formed. And many who are clairvoyant or clairsentient can even see or feel where the blocks are in someone's body, because everything is energy. So these blocks can be identified and released. And when these blocks are released, they often manifest. Oh, and if the blocks are not released, they often manifest as health issues in different parts of the body. So take, for example, Louise Hay, who is often considered, the mother of the self-help movement, queen of affirmations. She wrote a book in 1984 called You Can Heal Your Life, which talks about all this and is still used as a resource for many today. But for example, if you're experiencing lower back pain, it usually signifies that you're not feeling supported in some area of your life. And so these are things that can be cleared, and there's many ways to clear. It can be affirmations. There's a technique called the emotion code. There's EFT tapping, Reiki, and these are all the tools that I utilize in my coaching. And once you can clear these blocks, it allows, first of all, it allows energy to rush in, allows for better clarity, health, good feeling. But the big one is, okay, this feeling I had of I'm not good enough, where did that come from? We go deep to identify when that happened. Was that when you were 7 years old? Was that when you were 21 years old? We talk about it, and then we clear whatever that block is. And once it's cleared, it's cleared. And it sounds a little out there. I do realize that, but I've witnessed it on so many people, and I've had it done to myself as well. And I am really passionate about it because I was one of those people who thought I was not good enough. There, from a lot of experience, I was carrying that with me. And so to see the trajectory of my life from a year and a half ago to now, if somebody had told me I'd be doing what I'm doing, I wouldn't have believed it.
Right. And so, Carol, I just to point towards it, it doesn't sound out there. If we wanted to translate that into street language, which is more what I do, I've had gut issues forever. And the gut is where emotions sit. You read books on science now, and the gut is made of the same material as the brain. And the brain, and it's another brain that stores memory. The body stores memories. This is a neuroscientific fact. And you work with it from an energetic perspective, which means it bypasses the brain. And by the way, those of us who are used to and have been trained to be in our heads, that's perfect, because we just hand ourselves over to somebody we trust, like you.
Yeah.
The alternative is to go down the route of a slightly more logical, but probably less quick way, which is to go down the route of, learn to be in your body through mindfulness. This is what I do. Listen to your body, and then come up with a narrative. So shifting that narrative entails hearing the original narrative of, say, the victim or the saboteur or whatever your body's telling you. Understanding what was the experience, what meaning you put to it, how the emotions stuck, and how it drives you. Now, this is all a lot more logical. So unless you're willing to do the work,
right,
then it's probably best to go through the energetic way, where somebody's working with those blockages in a different way that you don't get. And because you don't get it, you allow it.
Right.
So these are two different ways of working with it, and they're complementary. You can do both.
They definitely are, because one of the exercises we do to figure out kind of where the blocks are happening, it is a homework assignment I give to say, okay, go back from the time you're born and just kind of think of this timeline. Where were really memorable events, like things that happened that might not have been good? Those are the ones we want to look at, because those are the ones that usually have literally kind of embodied themselves. And let's take a look at those so we can release them. And then to your point, once a lot of things are released, it is about being mindful, being in your body, taking notice of what's going on, being aware of your feelings. All of that is so important.
Right. One is the releasing, and the other one is the cultivating of protecting and not letting other things in, and noticing when that old stuff comes back up and how to deal with it.
Right. Because once you become more mindful, then when traumatic or upsetting experience happen, you don't have to wait 5 years. You can, okay, this just happened. Let me tap on this. Let me, you
Right.
know, so you're not having to dredge up all this old stuff going forward. Once you learn how to do this, you can kind of do it in the moment.
Correct. And just to tie in the two concepts between releasing the energy and or the old narrative in sort of my programs, um, and the purpose, you don't have to wait for one thing to happen in order to do the other one. Sometimes having and finding a purpose drives that healing. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and being able to be in your purpose drives that healing. And also because you have that purpose, you notice when things come up and become obstacles, and so
Yes.
you can start to identify the blind spots.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's like you said, it's all kind of
Hmm.
interwoven because once you clear away all this old stuff, then you can
Right.
move more confidently towards your goals. You'll have that clarity and you'll feel more aligned. It really is interesting the way it weaves together and each kind of feeds each other.
Right. And the finding of the purpose, just to not make not having a purpose wrong. If you don't have a very clear purpose, it's fine. Most of us dabble into things and get to what isn't for us before we get to what is for us. The key thing is that you're aware and always curious about it. And it's also that you don't just look at where your passions and strengths are. Also look at where your huge pain points are, because you will have overcome something that other people haven't. And from that pain and that knowledge and that understanding of overcoming, even if it makes you feel not enough, you're still in a position to connect and support other people in that pain. So
Yes.
purpose doesn't always come from the most obvious places. And that's where
No.
our support is, or a mentor or anything. Even taking
Yeah.
different classes can help you go, ooh, that really feels good. I really like to do this. It makes me want to get up and do more of it, you know?
Exactly. And like you said, being curious is huge
Yeah.
because most of us don't have that from the time we're born. We know what we want to do. And a lot of people go through life just very frustrated. I've heard it from people in their 20s all the way to people in their 60s. If you don't know, it's frustrating, but there are ways to start honing in on it.
Right.
And yes, sometimes I think it does really benefit you to have a mentor or a coach.
Right.
It give you those tools,
Right.
and get there a little bit faster, maybe.
Yeah. And in the homework, we will, sorry, in the workbook, we will, or the fun book, which is what we will probably give you an exercise or two to help you play with that.
Yeah,
So, uh, keep your eyes out for the workbook. Um, or just send us a message and let us know if there's something you want help with in the different ways or want to know more about. Then let us know, right? We're here for you.
absolutely. Yeah, and this was probably a longer video, but it's a big topic, and it's one that so many people. I think it's one of the biggest topics, when it comes to purpose. So we wanted to devote the time, and we look forward to any comments and feedback, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Take care.